Greetings, this is Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I have drifted into the underworld. The Star Wars underworld. I have a bad feeling about this.
Here we go. We must go to the lower levels. The underworld.
You've taken your first step into a larger world.
You're after something.
Ben.
Since I've started the underworld, I've met so many great friends.
Chris.
I grew up in the 1990s, and mall packaging is nostalgic for me.
Dominic.
What I love most about Star Wars is that it's fun, and it's all-round good times.
So, this is where the fun begins.
May the Force be with us.
This thing really moves!
Whoa! I like this!
I can't believe you came all this way to see me.
What's up, Star Wars fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Star Wars Underworld podcast. We are your source for the latest breaking Star Wars news and discussion each and every week. And this week on the show, we're going to be reviewing Chapter 3 of the book of Boba Fett, and also getting finally to your awesome listener feedback. All that and more on this episode of the Star Wars Underworld podcast. My name is Chris, and joining me is my good friend, Mr. Dominic Jones.
Hello, Chris. Hello, Ben. Hello, everybody. Yeah, I'm so excited to talk about this Book of Boba episode. But I gotta say, I watched this episode in kind of an unusual circumstance for me. I usually like to stay up till 3 a.m. and watch it when they first debut, watch them on the big screen, turn off all the lights, pretend like I'm in a movie theater, clap when I see the Lucasfilm logo, go all out for it.
The worst.
Yeah, exactly. But this week, unfortunately, I had to work early on Wednesday. I had to be at work at 8 a.m. So I figured I can't really stay up till 3 to watch something that's probably going to be about an hour and then have to get up at like 6:30, 7 o'clock to get to work on time. It's not a good idea. I shouldn't go with that. So I said, all right, self, you're just going to have to watch it in the evening, go to bed, be well rested for work. And so I did that. I went to bed maybe a little later than I should have, but I went to bed and I couldn't sleep. Just couldn't sleep. And I don't know why, but I couldn't get to sleep. And all of a sudden I look at the clock and it's 2:50 a.m. And I start making one of those bargains with yourself that, you make sometimes where I'm like, you know what, if I'm still awake in 10 minutes, if I don't fall asleep in the next 10 minutes, I'll open up the Disney Plus app on my phone and just see how long the episode is. And so, all right, 10 minutes go by, it's 3 o'clock. I'm like, all right, let's see how long it is. And I open it up, I see that it's 38 minutes. And I hear this little thought in the back of my brain going, that's not too long. You're already up super late. Just watch it. And I go, no, little voice. I can't listen to you. So then but then I think to myself, well, what if I just watch the previously on? It'll be like a little teaser for the week, and I'll spend the rest of the day thinking, like, what happens? I see what they teased in the previously on. So I click the episode, I start watching the previously on. And then we get to the end of the previously on, and the intros start, and I'm like, well, it'd be disrespectful to click out during the intro. So I should just watch through the intro. And then Stephen Root showed up on screen, and I'm like, well, I'm staying up. I can't go to bed now. I'm in for a penny, in for a pound. Here I am. I'm watching the episode. So I watched it in bed at 3 a.m., and that was probably the most comfortable I've been while watching an episode. Like I know all these auteur filmmakers are like, no, don't watch things on your phone. And generally I'm like, yeah, I'd rather watch Star Wars in an IMAX theater or something. But I got to say, I was pretty comfy. I was all cozy in my, winter blankets and stuff. And watching the episode that way is pretty good. And I think it made me enjoy the episode even more. So I'm looking forward to talking about what's actually in the episode instead of just describing how I watched it. And so we're going to have a great show.
And what's funny, too, is it seems like every week they're putting the episode out earlier and earlier. Like this week, I started watching it at what would have been year 249. Like 11 minutes before. So by 3:30, I was already done. I'd gone through the credits and everything. So I don't know. Maybe in the future you'll actually be able to watch it a little bit earlier. Yeah, that's awesome. Also joining us, it's the founder of the Star Wars Underworld, Mr. Ben Hart.
How's it going, everybody? Yes, I'm glad that at least some people still have at least an ounce of self-control, because I've lost it all. I'm just committed to staying up until, like, I think I stayed up till 5 a.m. the other night to watch it and then discuss it on a live stream. Yeah, it was a lot, but no regrets. So whatever.
Yeah, I think maybe I should have called in from this for your live stream this week and just been like, yeah, I'm here. I'm all in bed, just ready, just enjoying the episode. Just want to say I liked it. Okay, goodbye. I just want to say Jesse Bennett in the chat says I've started watching the episodes on a VR headset. cuts out distractions so I can stay focused. It's like a private
That's
IMAX.
cool.
I think I might have to follow suit on that, Jesse. I like that. That's a good idea. Also joining us this week, regular contributor on the show from time to time. He's from the band F105. It's our buddy Din. Din, welcome back.
Hey, guys, girls, thems, theys, everyone.
Guys, gals, non-binary pals.
Yeah, I mean, it's just such
I like
a habit
that.
to say
That's good.
guys, but yeah. So, it's great to be here. I love this episode. Chris, I love your sweater.
Yeah, I'm refusing to take it off. It was given to me on Christmas, and I've worn it every day since Christmas. And I should wash it soon. That might be a good idea.
Yeah, but
Starting to
depending
smell like
if it's
the inside of a tauntaun.
yeah, if it's wool, I notice wool sweaters tend to not smell as quickly as others.
I have no idea what it is.
I've got one of those Star Wars Christmas sweaters as well, and it said "Do not machine wash" on it, and I got that sweater in 2014. It is now 2022. It has not been washed, so
Jay,
it just sits. I mean, it sits on the shelf for at 362 days of the year, and then there's 3 days where it gets worn, and there it is.
I read somewhere because you read those 1,000 facts you don't know things at 3 a.m. when there isn't a Star Wars episode to watch, and one of the things on the 1,000 facts was you shouldn't wash your jeans. You should put your jeans in the freezer and kill the bacteria with the cold, because then it won't wash out your jeans in the wash.
Huh?
I've heard that too.
So I guess we're
Recently.
supposed to put our Star Wars Christmas sweaters in the freezer once a week, and it'll keep it nice and fresh.
Yeah. That's
The freezer will be dank, but your
your
food will
You maybe don't want to put
have a certain
putting other stuff in there.
little something extra.
Oh man. Well, we're gonna get into chapter 3 in just a moment here, but before we do that, Din, I'm gonna throw it over to you. What have you thought of Book of Boba so far, episodes 1 and 2?
Yeah, this was a show that I didn't think I wanted, but I adore this show. All 3 episodes so far. I mean, I think the last week's show, I was really disappointed that you didn't have me on for that, because talking indigenous stuff and the perfect hero's journey, like all that sort of mythic symbolism throughout, that's my speciality. But I'm just kidding. I sort of rather like to talk about these ones like this that you always have me on for, like episode 3, which I think was Grogu egg genocide.
Yeah.
Genocide episode. So episode 3 is the one where I think they sort of go, okay, we're gonna switch gears, and I like talking about that. I like talking about the gears shifting and trying to figure out where they're gonna go, because you got to take risks to kind of go somewhere else, and it's maybe always not the best single episode, but I really like what this is pointing towards.
Mm-hmm. And there was definitely a lot of gear shifting in this episode with the Vespa chase all through the city. So getting all the gears shifted in here. Yeah. All right. So we'll get into
wheelchair chase.
all right. So we'll get into episode 3 in just a moment. But Chris, why don't you plug some stuff first?
Oh yeah, that's right. That's the thing that we do on the show.
Yes.
If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to our channel. And if you're not watching on YouTube, and if you'd like to see us in addition to hear us, you can go over, search for the Star Wars Underworld on YouTube, skip past the test footage from the Star Wars Underworld Unreleased show, and then you'll find all of our episodes over there. You can support us on Patreon, patreon.com/theswu. Get yourself all hyped for that Patreon trailer that we will eventually put out. Although it sounds like it's going to be delayed again, so it will happen though. And for as little as $1 a month, you can get our pre-shows. We had a really entertaining pre-show this week. It's something you do not want to miss. I'm not even going to say what happened. I'm just going to say it was really fun.
Oh, I shouldn't have. I took the picture out of the the displays that we could have. I should have left it up there as a teaser.
So that's a big tease there, but patreon.com/the SWU. We're also part of the Culture Slate Network, so make sure you check out Star Wars Culture, the Rollout, and Chatter Squadron over there. And we are doing the immediate reaction streams to the Book of Boba Fett over on the Star Wars Culture channel for now, because of some events out of our control. So make sure you subscribe to Star Wars Culture if you haven't already. If not, I mean, what are you doing? We've had Hannah and Jordan on so many times to plug how awesome their show is. But make sure you, if you haven't, make sure you subscribe to Star Wars Culture to check out their show. And that is where you will see those immediate reactions where we're all tired and loopy and jazzed up on caffeine and whatever the heck is going on in the middle of the night, early morning on Wednesdays. So check that out over at Star Wars Culture. And then if you want to send us emails, swunderworld@gmail.com. We are going to be reading some this week, unless Din goes on a 1 hour rant about chapter 3. Then we won't have time.
Oh, right. I was supposed to be doing a project. I'm not meant to announce it. I'm working on something.
Oh.
And it was sort of like a pickup stay tomorrow that got canceled. And I was telling Dom, we need to be done by 11:38 because I got to sing well tomorrow. But that's canceled because of a cold at the studio. So just in case it's COVID. So next week. So I can talk all night.
All night.
Awesome. So we should hopefully be able to get to those.
I mean, Hannah, sorry.
Are we sure this isn't the 4 a.m. show?
Here we go again.
I need more coffee.
Oh, man. I'm having some flashbacks to something that I don't know if it ever was released on anything. And make sure that you review our show on Apple Podcasts as well, especially, and they need non-American stores. That would be super cool. All right.
Yeah. All right. So let's dive into things. We are, of course, talking about the Book of Boba Fett, Season 1, Episode 3, Chapter 3, The Streets of Mos Espa, written by Jon Favreau and directed by Robert Rodriguez. This week, Boba recruits a gang of well-dressed speeder bikers to aid in his efforts to gain control of his territory. Meanwhile, in the past, tragedy strikes the Dune Sea. So much to get into this week, including the introduction of Drash and her crew, a showdown with Black Chrysanthemum, and the influence of the Pikes growing ever stronger. So, without further ado, let's dive into things, and we'll start how we always do by giving our initial impressions of the episode. And Ben, we're going to throw it to you first.
Absolutely. So, you can go back and if you want like my initial impressions, middle of the night, I just watched the episode. I'm tired and I'm kind of loopy. Go watch the Star Wars Culture live stream because that's where my and basically it can be summed up with what the hell was that? Because I was very I think we were all kind of like what we're just trying to make sense of it, and I've since watched it again, and it makes a lot more sense to me now, and I think I like it a lot more. It's not without its maybe flaws. I think there's been a lot said about this episode already online. I don't think I agree with a lot of the stuff that's been said. There is one thing having to do with indigenous stuff that I completely understand people being upset about, and just from a fan perspective, I'm like pretty bummed that they, the Tuscans are seemingly no more. But overall, I mean, it's a stunning looking episode. A lot happens, and they're moving the story forward, and that's what I appreciate about this episode in particular. I didn't want a status quo to be established. I wanted to keep moving things and doing things. And even though there was some left turns in there that I didn't see and maybe even would have preferred not to, still was a pretty solid episode. I'm not sure it's my favorite. Not sure it's my least favorite. We'll figure that out later. But yeah, I like this one.
I mean, there's been 3 episodes, Ben, so it's very easy to have a favorite, a least favorite, and a most middle. So there we are. Din, what about you? What did you think of this one overall?
Yeah, this is why I'm actually really happy I'm on this week and not last week, because last week's was obviously quite subversive in the way that it dealt with the trope of, you know, an indigenous culture taking someone in who happened to be an indigenous person himself. So that really kind of just flips it right from the get-go. But this week, again, I think we have something that's just as subversive and equally misunderstood in a lot of ways. Like when people last week compared it to Dances with Wolves, I thought that was silly because it's actually kind of subverting Dances with Wolves, which you can never fully do unless you have an actual indigenous director and filmmaker making the thing. But that's a whole other topic. This week's what happens when people try to help indigenous people? Usually things get worse after. If you know, indigenous cultures, think about things 7 generations ahead. And this really shows that Boba wasn't thinking far ahead in terms of reprisals and what can happen. So I actually think it's pretty this is continuing for me. Star Wars is continuing to finally say something again, which is if you help, you might make things worse. When I saw that scene, I thought of Wounded Knee or any other massacre of indigenous people. And I think that's going to figure into Boba's arc and learning from his mistakes as we move forward. And that's why I love this episode, because I think it's really not sitting in a comfortable place. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Chris, what about you? Overall, your thoughts on the streets of Mos Espa?
I definitely resonate with what Ben said, the concept of this episode not being perfect, but still being very confused as to the reasons other people are given for it. I woke up today to this massive thread on Facebook about zippers in Star Wars. And I was just why is everybody arguing about zippers in Star Wars? Luke Skywalker zips up his jumpsuit in Empire Strikes Back. Why are they talking about...
Oh my God, good point. Paul Bateman.
Someone's getting called out. But
take that. Zippers are canon since 1980.
I don't mind the zippers. That did at no point did I think about zippers while watching this episode. But I do feel like the storyline. I feel like it's a little whiplashy because it's we're trying to having these two stories happen at the same time, where there's the past story about what happens to Boba Fett after he gets out of the Sarlacc and he's on in the sands of Tatooine, and then you have the streets of Tatooine current timeline story with him being a crime lord and dealing with other crime lords. And I feel like at points this show so far has been really good at kind of balancing those storylines. But I think it's really interesting to me how we went from an episode that was pretty much almost all flashback and then just a little bit of advancement in the plot. And then you go to this episode and you get a very small flashback that then kind of fills in from or picks up where the other flashback left off. But then there's all this other stuff. But then a lot of the stuff happening in the current timeline is kind of like a left turn, almost like a quick 90 degrees from what we got last week. Last week, you're introducing the twins and you're doing stuff with the mayor. And that you seem like you feel like those are the 2 people you have to be concerned, or 3 people you have to be concerned with. And then this week, the twins are leaving and abandoning Black Chrysanthemum for some reason. Yeah. And then and then the mayor just disappears, and his major domo was trying to run away, and now everybody's worried about the Pikes and maybe this other syndicate that may or may not be the Pikes. So to me, I did feel a little confused after watching it. Like Ben said, you have to watch this episode multiple times just to kind of have it settle in, what exactly is going on and try to figure it out. Because I just feel like the balancing between the two, the past and the present, at some point, it's gotten a little bit off kilter. And I feel like they're missing some exposition or some plot points aren't happening in exact the same beats they should, because it's a little confusing. So while there's great elements to this episode, I really like the chase scene through the streets of Mos Espa. I thought that was really cool. I do think that perhaps these 3 episodes would have been a really interesting movie if it had been arranged a certain way. But splitting them up into 3 episodes and splitting it up the way they did, I feel like is a little bit clunky and leaves a little bit to be desired from a filmmaking and pacing perspective.
Yeah. I just want to say my favorite part of the chase was seeing Mei Lu runs in live action.
Yes.
And I now want to eat one of those things. We need to get those at Galaxy's Edge somehow.
Please.
Yeah, I think when we look back at the Book of Boba Fett, I think we'll feel that the sum is greater than the parts. And I think that's the case for a lot of Star Wars shows. The show that I think best embodies this is actually Rebels, because when we watched Rebels week to week, it sometimes or at least I felt sometimes like I didn't quite understand what they were trying to say, what they were trying to do with that show, and it felt like it could be sort of all over the place. And then when I would sit down after the season was over, when I would watch the Blu-ray set, this was in the pre-Disney Plus days, and I would watch all the episodes in the span of a couple of days. I'd go, oh, okay, I see it now. I really, really get it. And I'm not advocating for them to start releasing these episodes in a binge style, because I still prefer the week-to-week schedule, just selfishly for podcast reasons. And also, like, I feel like some shows like Mandalorian really, really work well with that format. But I think Book of Boba is one that's going to feel stronger than, it's going to feel stronger when we get to watch it all at once. And I felt that way last week looking at the first 2 episodes, and I kind of feel that way this week. Only I feel like I have to see the next part of it to fully appreciate this episode, which, like you guys, I enjoy quite a bit. There's a lot in here that I really liked. I like these new characters that we're introduced to. I like the look generally of that. The chase scene, I think, for me, suffers a little bit only from the fact that it follows after one of my favorite action sequences in all of Star Wars, which was the train robbery last week. And it's sort of like, well, no matter what unless you were going to follow up the train robbery last week with something that surpasses the space battle from the end of Rogue One, like, it was always going to be a little bit of a letdown in comparison for me. But I feel like there's a lot of interesting stuff moving around that I'm really excited to see where it goes, and we'll get into what's going on with the Pikes and the mayor and everything that happens in this episode. So, but I want to start with the flashbacks or the storyline in the past and what we see happen there. Boba, he goes and sees the Pike leader, and when he comes back, the Tuscan Raiders camp has been burned, and it looks like they've all been killed. So Dan, I'm going to throw this over to you. Tell us what you've thought about Boba's relationship with the Tuscans thus far, and talk a little bit more about what you think of this decision in the episode by the filmmakers.
The decision about what happened to the camp.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, I really kind of covered that in my intro preemptively. I think. So I feel like the relationship with the Tuscans is a challenging one because of the whole history of how indigenous people are represented in cinema, for the past over 100 years. And we always get this thing where they take in an outsider, and you got to see the documentary made in Canada called Real Injun. It's made by indigenous people, and it examines this 100-year history. And they start like in the where there was no talking, the black and white, and they go through chronologically, and then they get to Dances with Wolves, and then there's this guy who's like, and then what we really needed, we were told who we really need to save us is a white guy with a mullet. Referring to Kevin Costner.
Oh my God.
And so like this is like, it's really hard to go there, but like, because Tamora Morrison is also indigenous, and because he is really vocal about that, and because he was really adamant, from what I've read, about making sure that he was able to infuse a lot of his how do you say it? Maori
yeah.
sensibilities into everything from the fighting to the dancing to to relationships. I feel like Tem's approach had a sacred feeling to it, which was respected by the filmmakers. I forget who the director was of the last episode. In particular, had a sacred feel.
That was Steph Green, I think, right?
Okay, so good job on Steph's part with working with him. So I feel like the whole thing has been imbued with a purposefully sacred sort of tone, and not just from Tem, but from the filmmakers as well, in terms of the visuals, the symbolism, the music. So, and then with everything Aubrey was saying last week, I really wanted to wait to hear from someone who was Indigenous react to the episode, and I feel like her and her mom kind of had a similar feeling from it, that the relationship has been done respectfully. So the second part of your and I think that it was the relationship's really imbued with the ending of the last episode last week when Boba puts on the cloak, and from the most ancient times, like even in Egyptian symbolism, the cloak is from the hermit, which is when the hero puts on a cloak, they're putting on the protection of their new values they've gained. So from that sacred relationship with the Tuscans, I feel like Boba is symbolized in that moment to show that this relationship, which has been sacred, has given him a new set of values, which he's taking really seriously, and that feeling that's imparted to me as a viewer, I like. And then, as I was saying at the beginning, the second part of your question, yeah, I think he wanted to help, and he wasn't thinking as smart as he should have about 7 steps ahead, or 7 generations ahead, as the Indigenous say, about how his decision to help them would affect them. And we see the repercussions of that this week, and that's very uncomfortable. But that is what happens in the real world. Mm-hmm. What has happened in our past. So I'm liking where this is going, because I think it's trying to say something.
Yeah, and that's something I've seen with a lot of Indigenous fans, and their reaction to the episode was they've been saying, "Yeah, look, we saw this coming. This felt like it was being set up to happen this way." And you look at our history, this is what happens all the time, and it was heartbreaking to see it on screen, but it wasn't a surprise. And I think I think everybody sort of is familiar enough with movie and TV tropes that I think we could all kind of sense, or a lot of people could sense, that this was a real possibility coming out of last week, given how at home Boba seemed with the Tuscans, that this felt like it was going to happen. And yeah, it's such a tragic and haunting and sort of terrible scene in a lot of ways, like terrible intentionally. Like, you're supposed to feel awful during that sequence when he's burning the bodies, when he's looking at the camp, when he's got the stick that the kid was holding. It just it really rips your heart out to watch it. And the whole idea that he's not thinking far enough in advance, I think that's something we're going to see him grapple with over the course of this show. Because something I was thinking about a lot with the sequences in the present is that it feels like Boba is kind of caught somewhere between acting like a bounty hunter and acting how he thinks a crime lord should act. And he hasn't sort of figured out what his version of being a crime lord is. And it's great to say, I intend to rule with respect. But how does that actually work? How do you actually go about doing that? Just going around demanding the same things that Jabba and Bib Fortuna demanded, but saying respect is not exactly respect. And so he's got to, over the next couple of episodes, I think what we've got to see happen, and what we're going to see happen, is Boba figure that out. And this, I think, is sort of the most painful of ways he could have learned it, because taking down the train and sticking it to the pikes last week, may have been a great victory in the moment, but we saw what resulted from it. And he knew those guys were out there. He knew that the Nikto biker gang was out there, and maybe should have planned for that ahead of time. So it's such a terrible scene. In that, not that it's poorly executed, just in that it's hard to watch, and it's a tragedy what plays out.
Joel asked a good question. Do we have to do this trope? My answer is ask Indigenous people if this needs to be done this way. As a white person, I can't answer that, but I do like the way they're tackling it.
Chris, we'll throw it over to you. What did you think of this sequence with learning the fates of the Tuscan Raiders?
I think for me, it's just more of taking what we've already seen in Star Wars and showing the reverse of it. Like, I think that's probably what they were going for. Like, you perhaps stumble into some deeper meaning and perhaps a meeting in the real world. But what I took away from it when I initially saw it is, they're just doing what we've already seen in Star Wars, just kind of flipped on its head. And that's why they did it, because there's been, last week, I think it was, where we saw Boba Fett carrying the dead body of a Tuscan Raider. In a similar way to how we saw Anakin carrying the body of his mother after she was murdered by the Tuscan Raiders. So there was that being flipped around. So this week you have a similar scene to when Luke comes across the homestead on fire, and you have Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru killed, and he initially thinks that it might be Tuscan Raiders who did it, but then they figure out later that it was Imperials. And so I think it's just kind of showing that scene again, but with the Tuscans being the victims of the aggression instead of the perceived aggressors potentially. So I think that it's more just like humanizing of the characters and showing that it's not black and white. And I think that's probably what the writers' motivations were for putting that in.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about the thing last week with Boba carrying the Tuscans, sort of similar to Anakin. But like, as you were talking about it, where I thought you were going with it was like, when you look at that scene in Attack of the Clones where Anakin wipes out the Tuscan Raider tribe, like, I think as the audience, there's a part of you that's meant to like. Really, you're really supposed to empathize with Anakin, and you're supposed to, as the audience, kind of understand where he's coming from. You might even be touching into the dark side yourself and thinking like, yeah, get him. They killed your mother, man. Killed your mother. Like, think about
Padme's just like, to be angry is to be human. I mean, she totally condones it.
Yeah. And then in this episode, you have Boba come back to the camp, and there's been another massacre.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of feeling that like, empathy with the killer, you're feeling the empathy with the victims.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that this show in particular, but also The Mandalorian, and the way the two shows work in conjunction with each other, has done so much to make everybody stop or maybe not everybody, but make a lot of people stop and look at the Tuscans again and go, okay, yeah. We were looking at a bad stereotype, at a bad sort of cliche in the old films that are a product of their time, man. That's just how it was. But sort of realizing that anything that we see on screen for a couple of seconds, it's a whole universe. There's a whole rich history and tapestry to these stories, to this universe that can be mined for stories in the future. And the great one of the real triumphs of both of these shows has been the way they've done that with the Tuscan Raiders, and they've taken something that was just a little throwaway moment in A New Hope and turned it into this sort of vibrant, interesting culture with very interesting real world parallels and real world inspirations. Ben, let's go over to you. Let's get your reaction to sort of the most tragic moments in the episode.
Yeah, it was something that I think I saw coming. As soon as like you saw the smoke, I'm like, okay, yeah, they're going here. Not something I wanted, but something that I think we all was telegraphed in a way. And you know, as much as we didn't want it to happen, and I think I didn't want it to happen from a story point of view. You know, I was quite liking what they were doing the Tuscans, and I wanted to see them how they would play into the current day storylines. Now that seems impossible. But although I will say, it is the way it's shown, the way the episode comes in and you see that you get like one shot of the kid, seeing him leave, and then that's it. And then he comes back, and of course we only see the chieftain's body. So I don't know if they're trying to tell us something. We didn't see, the warrior is very prominent a character in this show so far. Are they, are we just assuming that she is also dead? We just didn't see her body. Or are they trying to telegraph to us that not all the Tuscans died, and that will be something that comes back? We've got several episodes left. They could easily, we could find out towards another few episodes that, yes, some of the Tuscans did survive. Still doesn't for people that are upset that they're they've done it basically. Like they can come back and say, "Oh, just kidding, we didn't kill all the Tuscans." The crime has already been committed. And I think a lot of people that were turned off by this, and I think you're well within your right to do so, especially if you're an Indigenous person. That's not going to fix it for them, which is unfortunate. But I think we have to. I would caution. I would just say, look. We need to praise the show when it does good. I think, like you were saying, this show has done so much. I was concerned from the first episode. I brought up the fact that, okay, what's the deal with the Tuscans? Because we seem to be we did so much with Mandalorian, humanizing them, and then this show came to take a step back from that. And it, very quickly in the episode 2, chapter 2, continued to build on that and continued to build on what Mandalorian established. I think the show deserved to be applauded for that, because now just the fact that we're having this discussion about, hey, Tuscans are probably not all bad. In fact, they're probably mostly good. They've been treated in a poor light, and that directly connects to how Indigenous people in the real world have been portrayed in film and TV for 100 years, or more at this point. So it deserves to be applauded for that. But, it also, I think for a lot of people, this will be, one step forward, 2 steps backwards in regards to white savior tropes, all this stuff that's really distasteful. Yes, this stuff does happen in real life. And I'm glad we kind of had that discussion. But, as Din pointed out, I'm a white guy. My opinion doesn't really matter on this thing. So I would love to hear, we had Aubrey last week. It was great to hear insight. If you're an Indigenous person, reach out to us, send us an email. I would love to get more opinions on this, because I've seen a lot on Twitter, a lot of for and a lot against. And I would be curious, what is your take on this? And is this is it headed in the right direction, the wrong direction, somewhere in between? I'd love to know.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's like it's been said, there's only so much that we can say on this topic.
You got it. This is just a start. You've got to end up where someone like Taika Waititi is writing his own story that deals with these themes and has a actress like Davri Jacobs in the lead role. And they really say, this is just the start. That's why I like it. This if it were to end here, then no, this is not enough. But Tem is Indigenous, and he so I'm just deferring to him, what he thinks about the episode, and people like Aubrey. So
absolutely.
It would be very interesting to hear more. I know he's done some interviews recently, and I'd love to hear more from him specifically about this and what he thinks about this. I assume was involved. Obviously involved in this production, but how much say did he have? It seems like he had quite a lot, and I would love for him to come back and do more of this. Maybe whether he's involved as Boba Fett or any other character, have him be that guy to add an Indigenous voice, have an Indigenous voice not just in front of the camera but behind the camera.
This is where like stuff like this is where Star Wars needs to go head on, like straight on, and like really just hire an indigenous director and writer and lead actress, and just fully say something again, like personal, like George Lucas was personally saying something about himself. Like, we need those indigenous voices just get in there and really personally say something about themselves and their culture, and just show us, like, and for us to stop talking like we know what we're talking. For me to stop talking like I know what I'm talking about. Like, that's just what has to happen. This is just the start. So I'm just satisfied if this is it.
Yeah. No, as with all of these issues, it's good that Star Wars is taking the first step. Now let's get steps 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, on and on and on. All right, let's get into the storyline that takes place in the present, and we'll start with kind of the introduction of this new speeder bike gang that we get, the Scad and Drash, and the other two that I don't think have names yet. With those are Sophie Thatcher and
come
Jordan
on,
Bolger's
you could have named her Winky. Come on.
Oh man.
Yeah. And so we're introduced to these guys sort of in a roundabout way with the Stephen Root's character is the guy that sells water at a majorly inflated price, coming to Boba trying to get some help, and Boba goes sort of acts like he's going to help him, and then kind of finds a middle ground where he hires the kids, but he still pays back part of the money to Stephen Root. This is one part of the episode, I'll be honest, that felt a little bit first draft-ish to me, because you get Stephen Root, who shows up in I keep wanting to call it Jabba's palace, but I guess it's Boba's palace now. He shows up there and he says, "Hey, there's these guys, there's these kids that are stealing my water. Come help me out." And so Boba tracks them down to the one alley where they're all just like hanging out with their backs turned, and he confronts them. And then that just so happens to be right next to Stephen Root's store. Like, okay. And he's listening on the other side of the wall. Like, it's the sort of a scene that sort of felt like it'd be more at home in a play, where like you have one space where you just have to imagine that it's that everything is happening there. Where this so it felt like a little bit like, I don't know, John. I think you needed a second or third go at that scene just to make it feel a little bit more natural. But we do get the introduction of these new characters. And Ben, I'll throw this one over to you. What did you think of this gang that we're introduced to with their groovy speeder bikes and their cybernetic enhancements?
Yeah, I don't know. I like them a lot. I think the bikes are cool. Like, I like their designs. Like, there's some of them look like the Justin Bolger's character looks like he's wearing like Master Codebreaker's like jacket. Like, he's wearing like, he looks like he just came from Canto Bay, which I like. I like that we're seeing some upper scale hoodlums on Tatooine. I think I've enjoyed more just the absolute freak out online about these characters. People just losing their mind. This isn't Star Wars. Like, look, I get it. You don't have to like them. Like, I get it. They're acquired taste. They've got these neon, bikes, and they've got all these cybernetic. Like, I could get like this doesn't feel right. I get that, but like, it's not Star Wars. Come on, like, this is so Star Wars. This is so George Lucas.
Yeah, those bikes look like they should be parked outside Dex's diner.
Exactly. And like, it goes back to like, the hot rod and, going, how many Attack of the Clones parallels are going to be in this show? Because it's straight out of like Anakin Speeder, the one he steals in Attack of the Clones. Like, it's straight out of that. Bright yellow, it's the same thing. Like, I get it. Like, this is crazy. This episode is nuts. Okay. This is one of the reasons why it's absolutely crazy. And I appreciate what Favreau's doing here. Like, I love Favreau and Rodriguez. Like, they don't care. They're just doing stuff. They're referencing the holiday special for the 10th time. They don't give a damn, okay? They're just making Star Wars, and if it makes people mad, that's fine. I appreciate that. That's the Rian Johnson approach, and I am all about that. But they're just cool characters, and I like that they just like, and it's very quickly. Like, I think one thing that kind of is jarring for me is like, they're just like they just show up and automatically, Boba's got a biker gang and they got all these cool weapons like that. It's just like, wait, where did this come from? Like all of a sudden, this show again taking a left turn. I'm not saying it's bad. It's just like it's wild.
Yeah, that is the word for it. Yeah, you were saying, Ben, all this stuff feels very Attack of the Clones. Like I think this show, like forget Revenge of the Sith, this is the true sequel to Attack of the Clones, like design wise, character wise, or casting wise at the very least with Tamura Morrison. Yeah, I will say. I love the design of the speeder bikes, and Din, I want to get your take on the design stuff in a second. But I love the look of the speeder bikes, and I love Sophie Thatcher's costume, Drash, I think her name is. But the rest of the crew, I didn't dig their costumes all that much. It wasn't for me. They seemed like they were like a bunch of like English. Boarding school boys had broken away and started a motorcycle gang, and
kind
like
of
maybe
reminded me of Clockwork Orange a little bit.
Okay, yeah. That's just, and I'm just talking about their costume, not even like the cybernetic stuff. Like when Jordan Bolger had his scene, I'm like, that coat's not really doing it for me. I need to Star Wars that up a little bit for me. But yeah, they have. Sent certain people into an absolute tibby online. There's that one of those tweets that goes viral where it's just people dunking on it, where somebody's like, there isn't a single thing that's Star Wars in this frame. It's like, oh, shut up. It's like,
wow.
It's literally a sandy street in the background.
Yeah.
Come on, give it a few ounces.
Well, and this is the thing. You don't have to like everything that's Star Wars, but you also don't have to freak out over everything you don't like. You can just sort of go, not for me, and move on with your day. And it's I invite more people to do that.
There's always like, oh my gosh, this is why this show sucks. It has zippers in it, okay? We've never seen zippers before in Star Wars, and that's why the Book of Boba Fett sucks.
Yeah. Oh man. Dan, what about you? What did you think of these characters, their design and their introduction?
Yeah, well, I loved Drash. When I look at pictures of gigs from my favorite bands from like the 70s punk scene or new wave, like the Clash or Joy Division or whatever, that's how they're dressed. And actually that has precedence in Star Wars design because they did design Han Solo's look at the beginning of Solo on the Clash. So
okay.
That's why I was really upset when you had that figure and you gave it away with it, knowing that I really wanted it.
How many times do I have to say I'm sorry?
Just
the
sorry, I just keep going back there. And that was another solo connect. There's been a lot of solo connections from the from the music, and then the speeder, the funny mayor, administrator
the major domo
guy. Oh my god, he's so funny. He's with the pikes.
That's where I saw that back end. I was looking at that speeder going like, I recognize the back end of that speeder. It's Han speeder. Like
it's just basically the same style of design like in an old muscle car. So and then and Drash, just like like young women in punk, that was a big thing. So back in the day, like women empowerment and all that stuff, and just Drash just really embodied that to me, and she was awesome. So that was another rebel girl. But the speeders I do love conceptually because that's George Lucas, like to have those American graffiti speeders. I do feel like being friends with Russell Chong and listening to him talk about design and sort of asking him questions about what his take on Star Wars design was or where George would want to push things. And Russell would say Star Wars is dramatic shapes. So just, you think, right to the beginning of Star Wars, you got a big dramatic triangle. Next, you got that Jawa shape, sort of everything's like really just, you take the basic shape and you push it really far. So I think the speeders looked a little too Vespa to me.
Okay.
So I like the idea and concept, but I think someone with a sensibility like Russell would have just pushed those shapes to be a little more dramatic and Star Warsy.
And Russell would know. He did work with George Lucas on the Clone Wars back in the day and stuff. Like that guy knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, like anything, like like the speeders, all Star Wars. That is the trademark of Star Wars design. Whether the speeders on Endor, the biker skin.
Yeah.
You just really, really like take that nose as long as you can make it. That's Star Wars. So I felt the speeders were a little too Vespa-y, but it was fun.
Fair. Yeah,
that's
totally fair.
And what's great about the race is that we've seen a million chases in movies and TV since it was done perfectly in the French Connection. And you forget them, and you forget about them, and you don't talk about them. But we will be talking about this one for a long time. For good or bad, it's memorable.
Yeah. And I'll just quickly tell the story of the time I gave away the figure that Din wanted. Hasbro sent me a box of as they do every so often, a box of Star Wars toys to tie in with the release of Solo. And what I usually do is I pick through the ones that I want, and then at Christmas time I go and donate the ones that I don't want. And they sent me the Solo speeder from the beginning of the movie, and it had Han in that costume, and you can't buy a figure of Han in that costume by itself. Right. And little did I know until after I had given away the figure that this is something that Din has desperately wanted ever since he's seen the movie. And I still
a figure of Joe Strummer. If you ever get one of those, that'll do.
Yeah. And so I've always always reminded of this fact.
What I
should do is get those boxes of figures, show them to all my friends, and say, "Does anybody want anything?" Maybe with the next one. I know we're just joking around. Yeah, we're just joking around with it. Chris, what about you? What'd you think of the gang? We need a better name for them than the gang. They need like a cool name.
They're the water squatters.
Power Rangers.
No, I'm not going with the water squatters. I'm sorry.
That's catchy. It's catchy.
Is it?
No, I've heard the Power Rangers thing too. No, I've always wanted to be in a biker gang. You just look at me. That's what you think. This guy always wants to be in a biker gang.
When you grow out your beard, you could maybe fit in the background.
That's right. And then I've always wanted to be in Boba Fett's biker gang too. Like now that makes sense. So I guess all you have to do is steal water. So I got water here. All right, there's the sound of the water for people just listening.
Yeah,
now
for people
all
listening.
you need to do, was only one step left. You have to cut off your leg and get into the cybernetic one.
Yep. So I'm gonna cut off my leg and
one specifically that like is like a hammer on the end that like destroys stuff, like like that guy's.
Yeah. What did we think of that aspect of their design? This sort of these kind of cybernetic enhancements. It's a little Bad Batch-ish in a way, where instead of genetic enhancements, it's like Sophie Thatcher has kind of the wrist that's missing. Jordan Bolger has the eye and the foot and all that stuff. Like it's kind of interesting.
What I think is interesting about these characters, and first of all, I understand why people don't like them. I think that they're misplacing why they don't like them though. Like I think that everybody's like, oh, they look out of place and like stuff like that. But I just think that they're written in such a way that you're not supposed to like the characters. There's certain characters that you're supposed to be annoyed by, like as Morgan, for example. You're not supposed to like as Morgan. So there, and so I think because this is the first time you really see like posers in Star Wars. Because it's like a lot of times in Star Wars, everything has a purpose, right? If you're outfitted with a bunch of tech, it's because you're using it. You're a mercenary, you're a bounty hunter, you're the Bad Batch, you're something like that. And so whereas these kids, they just have all this tech to be cool. Like there's nothing that they're stealing water. Like it's almost like a joke. Like it's almost kind of like an anti-joke where like, they gave them something to do in this episode that is kind of just really, really dumb. Just stealing water from this dude who has a shop and then just hanging out outside his shop. And he can't do anything about it because they're 4 people and he's 1 person. Like, it's like, wow, it takes a big person to be able to do something like that. Like, they're like punks basically. And so that's the thing is that they have all these enhancements. There's nothing for them to do with enhancements. Like they just have it to be cool. So I don't think you're really supposed to like them. And I think Boba Fett, he's kind of like a mentor character that's coming in that perhaps is going to teach them something, but we really haven't seen it yet. And I think because we haven't gone on that arc yet, it feels weird because it's like they almost haven't earned what the place that they have yet. So we don't like them. We're annoyed by them, and we're supposed to be.
They're still in there. I was gonna go to Tashi Station, pick up some power converters phase, sort of.
Well, I also like the kind of like the window into like galactic culture that like if you have a lot of cybernetics or whatever, there's gonna be like a boomer like yelling at you. He's like, "Oh, you darn kids and your droid parts." You know, it's like having a lot of tattoos. In the real world, it's just like you're weird, whatever. So I like that Stephen Murch is
Stephen Root.
Wow, who's Stephen Murch?
There's Stephen Merchant, who's like a comedian, comic actor.
See, I just see everyone was like Stephen Root. I'm like, who? Like I've seen that movie or whatever. So I'm a little late to that party. Anyway, I love his character is fun. I hope he comes back.
Yeah, he kind of has the vibe that he'll be around, or at the very least, in season 2, there'll be a flashback to Mos Eisley before Boba Fett showed up, and you'll just see him walking through the background like we did with Pelimoto in this episode.
I just like the idea that he just shows up randomly and just conveniently is wherever Boba is. Like maybe he's stalking him or something like that. Walks all the way out to Palace and then ends up back 2 feet from him.
Yeah. We've talked a little bit about the chase, and I do want to mention I liked how slapsticky it was. Like it was straight up like a slapstick sequence, right down to the fact that you had 2 dudes crossing the street carrying a giant painting and they flew through it.
Yep.
It was great. And I love some McQuarrie
They painted Luke out of the painting.
Yeah. Well, I love that one. It's a McQuarrie painting. That's like a really fun, like little Easter egg in the episode for fans. But also, like, who on Tatooine wants a giant painting of Jabba? Who's like, yeah, you know what, my house is missing a painting of Jabba the Hutt.
Maybe they were taking it out of their house.
Oh, okay, yeah. They're like, well, Jabba's been dead for 5 years. We can finally get rid of this.
Only Jabba owned that, And then
yeah.
raided.
Or maybe it belonged to Jabba, and after he died, somebody broke in and stole it.
Yeah,
something.
Yeah. Only Jabba would own that painting.
Yeah.
see, kids, don't steal water. Steal paintings of Jabba. That'll take you somewhere.
Oh, there's on Jabba's sail barge in Return of the Jedi. He actually has a Trompe l'oeil. I forget how you say that, but like the 3D painting.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Trompe l'oeil. Yeah.
Really?
Ah, okay.
Reminds me of the fact that there's a teeny
of
tiny
himself on the side.
There's a teeny tiny Star Wars poster in the cockpit of the Tainted Four from the beginning of New Hope. Apparently,
really?
You can't see it on film, but like it's in there. They put a tiny poster in the actual model.
Huh. Okay. Cool. Cool. But yeah, I thought the chase sequence was a lot of fun. If I had one little one little criticism of it, it felt a little bit slow in comparison to like the train robbery last week. I think they did such a good job of capturing the sense of speed of the train, whereas the Vespas felt like they were going a little slow, and the mayor felt like he was going, or the major domo felt like he was going a little slow. But anything that ends with somebody crashing into a fruit stand, I'm on board with. You're not gonna. I'm there for that. I'm there for that.
I totally get that criticism. I rewatched it and I'm like, I mean, they're on like city streets doing like hairpin turns, like they're it's not. I think it's more accurate. It just feels so. I think the fact that they clearly did it all practical. I didn't recall seeing any like CG people or CG stuff. I'm sure there's CG in it, but like it feels like the basis of all the shots is people on like actual Vespas that are dressed up to look like space Vespas, and then a person in an actual car, because we know they've done that with Solo, putting it on top of a car. So like might actually be the same car from Solo. Maybe the reason why it's designed similarly.
Could be. All right, let's talk about the other big action sequence in the episode, which is the Black Chrysanthemum fight. Chris, what'd you think of that sequence?
That was pretty nuts. Like, first of all, like leading up to it, I was like kind of surprised at exactly where they put the flashback in the episode. I thought it was a kind of a weird spot, but then it was interesting how they came out of the flashback forced instead of him just naturally kind of like waking up from his back to sleep. He's getting like attacked. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And yeah, I mean, this character is obviously, Black Chrysanthemum's really powerful, strong, giant character. And it's cool to see Wookiees in action because it's not something we've seen a lot of. We've seen a little bit of Chewbacca here and there, but that's about it. So that was cool to see in live action. And yeah, I mean, Boba Fett, I'm surprised that he can still walk after all that.
I thought he broke his back there for a second. Like, it was all that cracking. I'm like, there's no way. Like, he's gonna be in a wheelchair for the next. He's gonna be a Klieg floating wheelchair for the rest of the season.
Back that can only do so much. You got to bring in a chiropractor for a house call, and that's what really was going on there.
Yeah, it was a cool sequence. And I love anytime we get the Gamorreans in there, get those guys running into the action. And
brave souls.
Yeah, those
brave
guys.
Pigs.
Yeah, those guys are cool. And I love the sound effect of them running into the action. The pig squealing noise is just fantastic. And of course, it ends with him with Chrysanthemum in the Rancor pit. And I thought they should have kept him there. I think he would have been an interesting. It would have been interesting to have him sort of stick around.
Because
in
you
the
drop
series
somebody else in
role.
there, they're screwed.
Yeah, he could be the new Rancor. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of new Rancors, we follow that scene up with the arrival of the twins. The Hutts are back, and they're not staying for long. Ben, your thoughts on the twins and their little their decision to pull off of Tatooine.
Yeah, I think Chris kind of mentioned it earlier. Like, it feels like Whiplash. We get the start of the last episode. They're like, oh, they're here. Like, clearly they're going to be the bad guys. They're going to be the big bads of the season. And then they're like, nah, peace out. We're gone. Right, here's a Rancor because we tried to kill you like twice. It was jarring. Like, it's cool. I hope they come back. I hope it's kind of a ruse that like they're playing them, and they kind of say that like. Boba and Finnick have a conversation like immediately afterwards, or like Boba's like, I don't trust them. Like, they stand to benefit from their rivals fighting each other. So like that could be a clue right there that maybe the Hutts aren't being totally honest. Either way, we got freaking Danny Trejo. He's canon now. I don't even like. I'm not even like a big Danny Trejo fan, but like I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, this is perfect.
Until his character gets a name, I'm just gonna call him the Chief and assume that he's the same character that he plays in Fanboys.
Yes.
I'm just gonna go with that, and I want him to talk about himself in the third person because the Chief likes to refer to himself in the third person.
Oh my god,
creates confusion. Yeah,
people are saying that he dies in like every one of his roles, especially the Robert Rodriguez role. So like, it doesn't look too good for the new Rancor Keeper.
I suspect the new Rancor, which I was waiting for Danny Trejo to call him Mochi. I was really waiting for that.
I am shocked. I'm shocked it wasn't Mochi. Like, I'm so shocked.
I thought that was gonna, but I think the new Rancor Keeper is gonna wind up eating Danny Trejo in whatever Robert Rodriguez's next episode is, whichever one he directs.
Trejo's Tacos.
Yeah. That'll be the title of the episode. We'll be like, that's a weird title. Book of Boba Fett, Chapter 6, Trejo's Tacos. Anyways, back to the Hutts and their decision to pull off of Tatooine. And we later find out it's the new syndicate they're pulling off because the Pikes have been promised Tatooine. I don't buy it. I don't buy it for a second. I think I don't buy that the Pikes are on their own. because in all the times we've seen them in Star Wars, they've never been operating completely on their own. They're either working for Darth Maul or they're working with Count Dooku, Darth Tyrannus. Like they're never working on their own. So I doubt that's the case this time. And also, none of the Pikes that we've met in this show have been sinister enough to be the main antagonist, in my opinion.
Yep.
So I think either they're working for somebody. Oh, I think they're working for somebody, and I do. I'm now willing to commit. I think it's Crimson Dawn. I've been waffling on it for weeks, but I think Amelia Clark is going to show up in here, and I think, but I think basically what the twins, what the Hutts are doing is they're thinking, all right, we're going to let Boba and Crimson Dawn or whoever it is, or if it's just the Pikes, whatever, they're going to let them beat each other up for a couple of weeks, go to war. Destroy each other, and then we'll just come in and take out the weakened version of whoever wins that fight. So if Boba kills Crimson Dawn, it's going to take a lot to defeat Crimson Dawn. So he'll be weakened. So the Hutts will come in and take him out. If Crimson Dawn takes him out, same thing. They'll be weakened. So the Hutts will come in and take them out. And I think, if I'll make a little prediction. I sort of was thinking along these lines last week, but I do think Boba and Crimson Dawn are going to team up in some way, that they're going to realize that this is the twins' little gambit here, and they're going to say, all right, let's work together and let's take on the Hutts, because I don't think they threw in that line last week of you can't kill a Hutt without permission for nothing. I think we're going to see a Hutt die in this show. But Dan, I'll go over to you. What have you thought of the twins and the reintroduction of the Hutts and the role that they've been playing in these episodes?
Well, one of the reasons why I really adore this show is that I see, Dave Filoni has often spoken of the fact that it's not just the craft of Star Wars that he was taught by Lucas, but also stewarding the kind of important concepts. Essentially, from the start of this show, and this was what I was sensing and a prediction, which is that this show is really taking what George Lucas was setting up in the Clone Wars in terms of how he was using the underworld to set up something that would eventually come to its fullness in his treatments of his sequel trilogy, which was that Maul was going to rise to power through first learning how to do it and taking a huge chunk of power in the galaxy by controlling the underworld. And then this was going to figure into how Leia becoming the Chancellor of the Republic, she was going to be dealing with the underworld and also whatever new threats there were with the Sith and all that to bring balance. This is all we know from George Lucas's, I guess that forward that was part of that big book. Forget the name. Whatever.
Yeah,
George Lucas recently said what his sequels were going to be. So what I'm seeing in this show and what I'm predicting is that those themes that were really important to George and those things that he was trying to set up are now being set up. Whether it was done purposefully or not, when John Kasdan, when he was co-writing Solo, when he really fought to have Maul, have that head of the underworld be Maul. So I don't know if he knew that's what Lucas was trying to do with the Clone Wars, but it worked. So now I feel like I'm predicting that they're taking what was important to Lucas and doing it their way, but working with that. And so right from the start, I just predicted that Kira is going to show up. In the first episode, they had the music, which was the Crimson Dawn theme or whatever that was playing a lot in Solo and on Savareen. And so what I find interesting and what I'm predicting is that when they play with these themes, they're actually going to be going somewhere that means something now. Maybe it's a fool's hope, but what does it mean now that Boba's now, I think, kind of in the role of what would have been George Lucas's Maul. But, and then how do they work with that? So how will balance be restored to the galaxy and in general on a political and spiritual way in dealing with all the chaos of the New Republic, that section of it that is the underworld, and where will that go? So I feel like they could go to places that will be post ST with what they're setting up now.
Oh.
I'm sensing like a really long game, but based on Lucas's concepts.
I hope so. I'd love a long game. That'd be great. That would be really cool. Yeah, I've been kind of thinking just sort of short term with this stuff, and been thinking like, they're gonna have Boba or whoever comes out of the show as sort of the leader, quote unquote, of the underworld. I figured that they would factor into the fight against Thrawn in some way, that they would team up with Mando and Ahsoka and whoever the representative of the New Republic becomes going forward in the climactic event for the Mandoverse. But I love the idea that, that could happen, and then there's even more that's coming down the line. Or even that I'm also very open to the idea that the situation that I described doesn't happen at all, and something else is planned that's long term down, big picture thinking. But yeah, that would be awesome. And now, Dan, we were talking before the show about kind of some of the visuals in the show and some of the stuff, and we were talking a little bit about this scene, and you had something you wanted to say about the lighting.
Oh yeah.
And so I'm gonna throw it over to you.
Are
for
we talking
little...
about the twins now?
Yeah, I'm gonna throw it over to you for a little technical analysis of the twins and their appearance in the show.
Okay, so before I get into that, I just had to. Why I love this episode so much is it reminds me of those episodes of like the Clone Wars that people hated, which sets up so much. Like, think about, like, water is the new Snapple. Like, it was
the poison Snapple. Yeah,
it was the poison Snapple episodes in the Clone Wars that are the whole reason for the corruption that leads us to where we are now with this imbalance of everything. Like, that let Maul come into power on Mandalore. It's like it all starts with something to drink. That seems fairly benevolent.
Those Mandalorian teenagers needed their tea, man, and somehow we wound up here.
Yeah, and now we have teenagers in this episode who are stealing water because it's very relevant too to our times. It's like prices are always going up, inflation because of COVID, but how much of it is greed, and like do things really need to go up as much as they're going up? And so I like that really touched me on a Star Wars saying something again. But yeah. Kids and Snapple in the Clone Wars. Now we have kids and water in the book. So that's why I love this episode. I have nostalgia for Poison Snapple. No, I actually do.
Yeah,
because I saw.
I love it.
You think of how ridiculous that whole thing was, but look at what it set up.
Yeah.
So that's where I think we are again, the twins. So I guess what value does this really have? But you asked me. When I look at I think the twins are great CG animation. I love their performances. I love how they're used in the story. It's so awesome. But I don't like if you look at this scene, I'm trying to figure out why they still look too CGI. And it's the light is hitting, like, if you look at sort of me right now. Wait, let me get my face. Okay. The light from the side is showing a plane, this is like clearly a plane of light, and then in the front shade, and that's how you see the 3D shape in a sculpture or portrait. You have like light and shade, and there's hard edges. There's hard edges, even though there's lots of light sources on me right now, there's hard edges. Whereas Chris's lighting is very soft. There's not much shadow on his face. So,
which is actually kind of funny because usually I do, and the program that controls it like broke on me.
Okay. So it's good for what I'm trying to say here. So you look at Boba in the scene where he's talking to the twins, and Boba to his left, so you're right of your screen, I notice he has a hard light on his helmet. You see light and shadow, and then you don't see that on the Hutts, and the Hutts actually have the light hitting from behind them, not to this side where it's hitting Boba. So the light direction is from two different places. I guess there's two suns on Tatooine.
I was just gonna say there is two suns. They're kind of in the same direction though.
But it's still But
I fixed
Boba
it.
and the Hutts are so close that they should have hard light on them, where you see like a side that's hard and a side that's shaded, and like there's no.
See, I'm doing it now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I've got the light over here and the shade over here, and then
And
this is soft where it's just the same everywhere. Yeah.
I feel like ILM's character CGI a lot of the times just needs like more dramatic lighting that's real world than, because even I'll just wrap it up here. So Leia in Rogue One, when you compare her face, and I've actually even after I've thought it, and then I've seen other people point it out on YouTube that they try to correct her, she's like just lit really soft with multi-directional lighting in the Rogue One CGI version. So DH, so you just see like it just looks kind of fake because you see all of her CGI, and she's on the same angle you see her face in shots in the beginning of A New Hope when she's being taken to Vader. But in those shots, she has like light and shadow. So that's my rant about light and shadow.
There's two examples of this that I've seen in the films. One is the difference between Yoda in The Last Jedi versus Yoda in Empire Strikes Back. I feel like there's some similar things going on with the lighting, because like Force Ghost Yoda just has really even lighting, and it just looks a little bit off compared to Yoda in the swamp, because in Dagobah they had the lighting was very moody, was very harsh, where it was coming through the trees and kind of the side and like the moonlight, and everything definitely had that very textured look to it, and deep look to it. And then another example is looking at all the aliens in the cantina in A New Hope versus the Star Wars Holiday Special, because they reuse a lot of the same costumes in the Holiday Special, but they look completely campy. They look like Halloween costumes in the Holiday Special. And it's not because the costumes are any different. It's literally just because the lighting's different. It's because they knew in A New Hope that to make the cantina kind of really dark and dingy with this moody lighting and this natural light coming in from the windows and the doors on the outside, whereas the Holiday Special, they just put in stage lights and just lit the whole thing up like it was a sitcom. And so it just makes it look not realistic and campy and weird when it's literally the same material as in the film.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's a great comparison.
I've watched enough VFX artists react to like understand the idea that like so much of the stuff is completely like it's not conscious of us. It's not like we're like, so we can point to and go, that looks fake. I can't really point to Luke at the end of Mandalorian and go like, okay, that specific thing that looks fake. And that's
if they gave him the hard light too, he would look more like he did in Return of the Jedi.
Right.
Where I'm saying the lighting of Luke in Return of the Jedi has become part of his character because that's how we saw him. Right. So you got to light him the same because that's how we think of him.
Do we know if Joel Aaron has anything to do with the live action shows?
I don't know.
Because
I think he would light them different.
Because like when you're looking at the Clone Wars, for example, and Star Wars Rebels, and definitely Bad Batch, they don't have those issues with the CGI. They're pretty realistically lit, and you know that Joel Aaron, he's the guy that is in charge of that, and and he has a photography background, so it makes sense that he would understand the photorealism in the CGI lighting. Because so I wonder if it's just a matter of having someone like him consult a little bit on the live action side more, because I don't know if there's somebody who's really quality controlling that.
Yeah, he's just going up based on a quick look at his IMDb. He seems to be very involved with Bad Batch.
Yeah,
he's the director of cinematography lighting on that show.
There you go.
And he's working on all the episodes. But yeah, I mean, you know, he's a guy that could probably, if he wanted to, he's been doing Star Wars animation since 2009. But prior to that, he was a live action guy. He was the technical director for ILM on a lot of movies. Just to name a couple, you got a couple of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies at World's End, Dead Man's Chest, movies some of us might have heard of called Star Wars Episode 3: Revenge of the Sith. He's on some of the Men in Black movies. Like, this was a guy that was doing live action. So, if he ever decided he wanted to swing back into the live action game, I don't think any of us would say no. Although based on,
I love the lighting of everything, the CGI in Revenge of the Sith. I love it. It's so good.
Yeah, and I think that's why they moved him over from live action to Clone Wars, or they were open to him moving over for that, is because they wanted to capture some of that energy in season 2 and beyond of Clone Wars. But I don't know. It seems like he's had a career shift, and he's happy being the director of cinematography lighting on high budget animated series for Disney.
And the results speak for themselves. With Bad Batch is one of the best looking shows like on TV right now.
Like when people say
on TV,
the Clone Wars looks real, they're like, that's mostly the lighting, in a lot of ways, because the shapes are completely stylized and not real.
Do an
experiment.
It's
the way it's colored and lit looks real.
Do an experiment one of these days. People in the audience, this is your homework. Go watch Duel of the Droids from season 1 of Clone Wars. Then go watch any episode from season 6 or 7, like literally any episode. You will there's obviously leaps in animation, but the lighting is just, and it's terrible in Duel of the Droids. It looks terrible because it's the first produced episode of the series, and it's just bad. But the lighting is just one of those things. When you're watching a sitcom, you're like, this is like a sitcom because it's lit like a sitcom, or it's lit like a movie. And generally speaking, these shows that we're seeing on Disney Plus are lit like movies. They are produced like movies. So it is disappointing, and it kind of takes you out of it when you see, hey, wait, that looks kind of fake. And there's been a couple instances in this show. I can't remember them off the top of my head. I'm like, that would have looked better in a movie. Like some of the parkour stuff, I wasn't super impressed with. I think that was a little TV. It would be something you'd see, on a TV budget versus, this kind of budget.
Yeah, true. All right. The one other thing in the episode that I wanted to bring up, and that is, of course, we've touched on this a little bit, although we've more talked about the Rancor trainer, but that is the new Rancor, the Rancor calf that we meet, and that Boba seems to have a connection to. Dan, I'll throw this to you. What did you think of Boba, forging that connection with his new best buddy, the Rancor?
Yeah, well, holy great witches of Dathomir, that was cool. Yeah, I mean, just I just want to see that image of Boba riding a Rancor. That'll be wild.
Yeah,
I
think
speaking
that's
of lighting, they did have the dramatic one light down in the basement. The dungeon, or whatever, the keep, the Rancor keep.
The pit.
So the Rancor looked so much more real in the pit than it did outside in that sort of flat lighting. But
if that
just excited to see Boba ride a Rancor. I mean, that's gonna. And then just if anyone from Lucasfilm happens to be listening to this episode, please one day show us the witches of Dathomir riding Rancors on a planet like Dathomir. That would be.
I feel like we're headed
cool
that direction now. We're gonna see it eventually.
Okay.
Like all the, we're like, if you hear it mentioned, like Solo proved that. If you hear it mentioned in a Star Wars movie, it's gonna play out in a future Star Wars movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and it's a nice nod back to the old Legends verse, because that was something that would happen in the sort of version 1.0 of Dathomir and with the Night Sisters, was that there were a lot of Rancors around and that they would be riding them. So it's a nice nod, and it seems like something that, like you said, Ben, we'll likely see it happen again. Now, Ben, what do you think of the way that Danny Trejo, or the Chief, if you will, the way he sort of laid out the connections that Rancors form with their humans, or their persons that they meet, and in this description of a Rancor as an emotionally complex creature.
Again, we're watching, the deconstruction of what you think a Rancor is. Just like the Tuscans were like, oh, they're vicious, mindless monsters, and all this stuff. You see the Rancor, and it's just like, oh yeah, it's a big beast, but like, it's in a basement, and it's probably starved half to death, and it sees a dude drop down. It's like, hey, a meal. I like the idea, and to an extent, Bad Batch has already set themselves up, which is why it could have been so easy just to make it Moochie. I don't know, Favreau, seriously, get it together. But and I think Danny Trejo says, "What are we gonna call you?" I'm like,
yeah, they're like Moochie.
Moochie, yeah, exactly.
That's what you call it, Moochie.
Clearly, like they're going a different direction here, and they're like, okay, this is a Rancor that's maybe a newborn, or it's a calf that hasn't seen people.
It's somewhere between Moochie and the Bad Batch and Moochie in Return of the Jedi, because I am putting my foot down and saying that's Moochie in Return of the Jedi. No more Patissa, it's Moochie. Well, I thought about, Ben, I was looking over the episode on Wikipedia, and I saw that they'd linked to Patissa when they were talking about Jabba's Rancor, and I thought about you, because you brought that up all those months ago. That controversy, and
it's still a controversy. Okay, I'm bringing it back because I'm mad. Okay, I'm angry with the confusing Rancor shenanigans in this show. Okay, is it Moochie or is he not?
Oh man, it's good stuff. Chris, now that you've returned from your little visit to the Rancor pit there, just real quick, give us your thoughts on the scene with Boba, the Chief, and the Rancor.
Yeah, well, I mean, I thought it was Moochie, like, initially, so I was really shocked when it wasn't. Like, I was very shocked by that, because it just makes no sense to not do that. Like, you already have a Rancor that's the right age to use, so why would you come up with a whole nother one? So I don't know, that was kind of strange to me, so that took me out of it a little bit, not having it be the same character as that we were recently introduced to in another show. But other than that, like, I guess it's cool that Boba Fett wants to be friends with the Rancor and wants to ride the Rancor, and like, all I gotta say is that better pay off.
Oh, like, it will.
Yeah, it better not just be like, oh, you just a throwaway line. Like, we've got to see Boba riding Spoochie or whatever this one's gonna be called.
I just love Tim Morris's enthusiasm. like he just got a new puppy or something like that. Basically, he did. It's like, I think it likes this.
Yeah. Well, and I love the idea of taking something in Star Wars that we thought was one thing and expanding it to be something else, and this connection that Rancors can form with their people. I love it. And yeah.
But
Boba
I feel like
ride.
It's almost not even retcon, because the way the Rancor Keeper was so sad and Return of the Jedi when it died.
Yeah.
You could tell there was a real bond there.
No, I don't think I don't see this as incongruous from the rest of canon at all. Like,
no.
There's that's definitely true. You definitely are meant to feel kind of bad for the Rancor and the Rancor Keeper and Return of the Jedi. So this fits perfectly. It's not a shift. And then
it might actually help you feel that scene more.
It's true.
The Jedi again, you'd have more of a.
The one thing that I thought of, though, when I was thinking of Boba Fett trying to have a connection with the creatures, I thought of Ezra. And I thought, this is kind of interesting. It reminds me of the way Ezra was with creatures. So I'm wondering if we're going to get to see Ezra and some Rancors or later on in one of these shows.
Yeah. All right.
Well, and also another big question I have thought of is, like, we have Patissa. Let's pretend Patissa and Moochie are different characters at this point. We have Patissa, the Rancor that Luke kills. We have Moochie, which we know is taken by Bib Fortuna. And then Fennec makes mention tells the Major Domo, if you'd have talked to Jabba the Hutt like that, he would have fed you to this menagerie. Menagerie is like, shorthand for zoo. are like a lot of different creatures. And I thought like what was setting up in Bad Batch is like, okay, there's a lot down there we haven't seen yet. Maybe there's a lot of different creatures. Maybe there's an Acklay or a Nexu or something like that. Maybe he has all kinds of creatures down there. Maybe they all died off because Bib didn't feed them for 5 years. It's interesting that I don't know. I wonder if that's just a throwaway line, or they're actually going to come back to that and say, hey, there is like, yeah, that Rancor pit is empty, but maybe there's another one.
Ooh, the second Rancor pit. I love it. The only other thing I really quickly wanted to mention about the episode, I love the scene with Boba and Fennec eating dinner. I want that to be an option at Star Wars night at Galaxy's Edge during Celebration.
That Nuna Tate looked delicious.
Yeah, I love. Yeah, Ming-Na eating the giant turkey leg with her feet on the table. So if she's at Celebration, somebody needs to bring her a turkey leg to sign. In fact, you know what? Nobody do that. I'm going to do that. That's my idea. Copyright.
Now there's going to be 1,000 people. Ming-Na is going to be like, what the hell? Everybody in line has a turkey leg.
It's going to be the weirdest collectible of all time. Yeah, so here's my Black Series figures. Here's my Lego. And here is my turkey leg signed by Ming-Na Wen. There we go.
Rotten turkey leg that she signed the cellophane on it.
Yeah, someone will be like, oh, so that's what that smell is in this collection. Jeez, okay. I thought it smelled bad on the outside. Okay. Anything else anybody wants to bring up about this episode before we hit final thoughts and score out of 10?
I guess my final thing to say is that like I wish that there were better hooks in this show. Like I understand the concept of it's really all supposed to be watched back to back to back to back like one long movie. So like that wouldn't make as much sense if it were a movie. But like, you got to know that you're putting one of these out every week. So I do feel like there's a little bit of a lost feel of this is each chapter and this is kind of the thing leading into the next chapter. Like, I don't feel like the thing with the Pikes was strong enough. I felt like the Mandalorian did a better job at the ends of the episodes of leading into the next storylines.
I don't know. I Mando sometimes felt too individual to me. Like, especially in season 1, it was like there's this story, then this story, then this story, then this story. Whereas this show is kind of the opposite. It really feels like one story drawn out over 7 episodes. So yeah, I wouldn't mind something that's a little bit more of a balance, but as it stands right now, I'm sort of like, we've got one that's this way and one that's this way. So it comes out in the wash for me. But I do definitely see where you're coming from. That like, you should think about how you're releasing these things in addition to how will people watch it after it's released, after it's all out there.
Yeah.
All right. Then I think we should hit some final thoughts and scores out of 10 for this episode. Chris, we'll go over to you first. Final thoughts and score out of 10 for the streets of Mos Espa.
So to me, this definitely felt like a kind of like I don't know, like an expositionary setup type episode. Like I wish that more happened in the episode than it did as far as moving the overall plot forward. I felt like it just moved the plot laterally. It took it where we thought it was going and then it shifted it over here instead of going forward. So like to me, I would say this is probably the weakest episode of the season so far. I think I like the chapter 1 and chapter 2 better than this one. I think this one just felt like a little bit off to me. I felt like it was like one more version of the script needed to go through a process of editing and before it was released. I felt like it's just missing one final thing to kind of clean it up. So I'll give it like a 7 out of 10. Like it's still got some good moments to it. It's still kind of like, the series is strong as a whole. But there's a lot of room for improvement in this one. And I hope that I feel like the show still needs some time to find itself a little bit. I feel like we're not quite there where we really have gotten into the rhythm and pacing of what the series actually is 3 out of 7 episodes into it.
Okay, that's fair. So what was your score again?
That was a 7.
A 7 out of 10. All right,
Yeah.
Din, what about you? Your final thoughts and score out of 10 for this episode.
Okay, well, first of all, I don't like comparing episodes to other episodes. I haven't done. I mean, just because it's Star Wars TV, like the Clone Wars taught me not to do that. It taught me that everything's going to be building up to something bigger, whether it's taking a risk thematically or a risk with the design or a risk with the new character. That's why I'm really happy about this episode, because I'm sensing that's what's going on with what's happening in this Star Wars TV world, which I was scared wasn't going to be the case with how the Mandalorian for the first half of season 1 felt a lot like just ticking the boxes of what fans want. And this is not ticking the boxes of what fans want, and I'm really, really happy with that. So I don't like rating episodes either. Because
give it a rating that like doesn't make sense. Like give it like 14 diamonds out of 17 cubes.
Yeah. Trying to fit a diamond in a cube. Okay. I don't know. It's too late. My brain's not following me here. Okay, so I am gonna give it an 8.
8 out of 10.
5 out of.
Oh, okay. There we go.
8.5 diamonds out of 10 squares, because I applaud them for what I'm sure Dave Filoni and Favreau and the team are having conversations about how do we steward this thing the Lucasian way, and how do we build something really layered and meaningful. And I'm sure that that's what's happening, and I'm sure this is one of those episodes that's helping. Like, I don't even look at this as one episode or one show. Like, we already know that this is 3 shows that are going to be building to one ending. So I'm just seeing something way bigger being set up, and I'm not sure what it is, but I'm really excited about it.
Yeah. Matt in the chat says you're giving it an 8.5 out of purple. I think that.
Well, okay, I gotta. It's true math form. That's so funny because I don't.
Yeah.
I'm giving it an 8.5 out of taupe, man.
Yeah. There we go.
And I'm really sensing the daring of stuff like the Clone Wars happening. Yeah, it's Poison Snapple all over again. It's Poison Snapple 2.0.
There we go. Poison Snapple.
And someone has to. I just wish that what this episode needed was someone like Han to give Black Chrysanthemum a nickname, because I don't like saying Chrysanthemum. It's really hard to say.
Yeah. In the comics,
like Chrissy or Kersey.
Yeah. In the comics, I think Afra just calls him K. Yeah.
K. Okay.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
Big. I think it's
So
Big
Afra
K,
pulled a Han.
Santi.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Big
things
K.
like that. Ben, what about you? What are your final thoughts and score out of 10?
I'm gonna give it 3 out of 4 rainbow space Vespas.
There we go.
So, because like I said, I did enjoy this episode. I think all of my first time watching each of these episodes have been like really weird. So I need to stop like going on podcast 5 minutes after I watch it and then saying, "What did I just watch?" Because that's maybe not productive. But yeah, you get my full thought process here. I'm not consistent at all. I will give 2 different opinions on 2 different nights. So here we are. I will say, upon further reflection, I think I appreciated where this episode was going, even though I think some of the stuff was a bit heavy-handed. Yes, even I can even admit, the Vespa things and the whole chase, whatever, it's out there, it's crazy, but I appreciate that. I appreciate when Star Wars, because what people don't get, I think, a lot of times is that they look at stuff like Force Awakens and you go back to 2015 and you're like, oh, this is just the same thing over again. And we want Star Wars to do different, but when Star Wars does something different, it's a nightmare for them, because It's not enough like Star Wars. And, you have to be able to say, hey, look, this wasn't for me, but I appreciate the effort. Again, I think I called this episode, I think on the live stream, the Last Jedi of Book of Boba Fett episodes, because it threw me for a loop. But then I come back around to it, I'm going like, okay, I like a lot of this. There's a lot of good things. And even the stuff that I don't like, I appreciate what the filmmakers are trying to do and try to push Star Wars beyond its boundaries, even though freaking Vespa's colored bikes are totally within the realm of Star Wars. Okay. That we've already established that. Anyway, I'm rambling. I will say that I will give this episode an 8 out of 10.
8 out of 10. All right. I'm going to give this one 7.5 Melu runs out of a Jabba the Hutt painting. So
totally logical.
Yeah.
Rating there.
I really enjoyed the episode a lot. I had some sort of quibbles with it on a technical level. I thought it could have used a rewrite. I do think it's just so that scene with the kids in the alley and then Stephen Root just happens to be there. That's just so weird to me that it just didn't quite scene sort of played kind of odd to me. And that sort of thing. And like I said, I felt like the speeder chase could have been a little bit faster. It needed a little bit more energy to it. Even though I loved all of the slapsticky bits of it. So those things were, kind of the weak points, but I really enjoyed the fight with Black Chrysanthemum. I really enjoyed sort of the politicsing of the underworld and the stuff with the Hutts. And the stuff in the past was it was tragic. It was a real gut punch kind of in the middle of the episode, which was then followed up, I think, by a literal gut punch when Black Chrysanthemum came on the scene. So I give it a 7.5 as a solid episode. Not my favorite, but also it's like I said, I think the show is going to be greater than the sum of its parts, and I'm here for the ride. All right, let's check with the chat and what scores they've given it. Yanni gives it an 8 out of 10. He's given the same score to every episode so far. Jesse Bennett goes with an 8.5 out of 10. Hannah says 6 out of 10, but next week it'll be 8.5 out of 10. Matthew Hardy goes 6.5. Carl Fox says 8 bonus points for Scooter Colors. Nice. Matt gives it a 7.5 out of 10. Joel goes with an 8. And there was some more in this. Oh yeah, Francisco gives it 3 sweet potatoes out of 10 Wookiees. There we go. We got another one here. Diablo Cooling goes for the full 10 out of 10. Chosen Nightwolf gives it an 8 out of 10, and George goes for the 8 out of 10 as well.
Yeah, it's funny. I put a little poll. First time I've ever done this, I put a little poll on our Facebook and Twitter, and it was rated 5 out of 1 stars, 5 or 1 star. And the responses are still coming in, and they're all over the place. There's so many 1, it was terrible, and there's 5, I would give it 10 stars if I could because it was the best thing ever. I'm wow, the opinions really are all over the place with this one.
Usually that's good Star Wars.
Yeah.
I wish we talked about some of the visuals and sound moments that were so beautiful in classic Star Wars. When Boba found the camp, that music and Matt, thank you, Matt, for sending me the name. The composer is Joseph Shirley, and the very sort of Orthodox inspired choral music that was played when Boba found the camp. It's really beautiful.
Yeah.
It's touching.
Yeah, it was another sort of moment that played into kind of the haunting sort of gut punch of that scene. It was good. Any other moments you want to highlight? Any other sort of visual sound moments?
No, that was the big poetic one that really stood out to me because it was, obviously a reflection of the way Luke found his aunt and uncle on the Lars homestead, but it was, done in a fresh way with different music, and it just really worked. It really worked when you watch that scene again. It's poetry.
Yeah.
There's more in the episode when Boba's traveling, I guess that's one thing I really love about this show, Star Wars, what Star Wars is doing in general on TV, which is that Lucasian sort of craft of movie making where you never confused, really, I don't find I'm ever confused about what's happening Like it's not like they're not pandering to the hyper instant gratification culture of audiences these days that need stuff really fast, like MCU movies, which I love the MCU movies, but I get lost a lot. They move so fast. But there's these poetic images of so many of them of Boba on the Bantha riding through the desert that are just really gorgeous.
Yeah, the Boba on the Bantha was, just terrific. I love those shots. He looked so cool, and they were really beautiful. Yeah.
No, it's such a testament to the show that this and The Mandalorian are huge shows where they have a lot of episodes and a lot of slow moments that are, and they're still staying in number one spots with modern audiences. So it shows that you just need to make good, crafty, moving images. They don't have to be fast to get people's attention.
Yeah, their willingness to kind of linger in a moment has been really felt on the Star Wars TV side for sure. All right, so we're gonna get to some listener feedback in a moment, but first, there was a new Force for Change campaign that was launched this week, and if you're watching the video, you can you already see on the screen, but they launched a video to launch. They had a video to launch this, and there were some familiar faces in this video, including one that people have been waiting a long time to see back doing Star Wars things. So we're gonna take a watch and a listen to that, and then we'll come back and do some listener feedback.
Hello, First Teams. More than ever before, we need ambitious, creative, and optimistic minds to solve the world's greatest challenges.
Through the power of science, technology, engineering, and math, today's students can face these challenges and create the futures they imagine, both for themselves and their communities.
You did it!
Together, First, Disney, and Lucasfilm are on a mission to spotlight how young people are using STEM to create a more equitable and inclusive world so everyone has the opportunity to thrive.
And today, we are very excited to announce our new initiative, Build the Future, powered by Star Wars Force for Change.
And here's where you come in. As future technologists, engineers, and innovators, you can harness the power to create a world that is better for future generations. As we confront increasingly complex challenges, from health and hunger to climate and clean water, we need creative, groundbreaking ideas. Your ideas.
How will you use your tools and skills to create a world that pushes boundaries and addresses critical issues to help pave the way so everyone belongs? The knowledge you gain within STEM is preparing you for a journey like no other, where you can use your technical know-how and creativity to change the world.
We want to hear how you and your teammates are using STEM skills beyond gameplay to be forces for good in your local communities.
Submit your story for the chance to be featured by Disney and Lucasfilm in our upcoming initiative.
Visit the link below for more information on how to participate.
We can't wait to hear your stories of hope and innovation and share them with the world through Build the Future, powered by Star Wars Force for Change. May the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you.
There it is, the new Force for Change initiative, and
May the Force be with you too, Hayden.
Hayden Christensen back after a long time away. Also, nice to see Kelly Marie Tran in there, along with Ming-Na Wen.
Really fitting to have something wholesome announced by the three of the wholesomest people in Star Wars.
Absolutely. All right, let's get to some listener feedback. As always, if you want to send in emails to the show, you can send them in to swunderworld@gmail.com. Again, that's swunderworld@gmail.com, and we'll read them, and we might read them out on the show. So this first one comes from Hugh. Hugh writes, "Hi there, Underworld, and a very happy New Year to you all. I hope you had a great Christmas and New Year's Eve. Did you receive any Star Wars gifts for Christmas? If so, what are they? My haul included a Mandalorian calendar, a poster of an X-Wing schematic, and the trade paperback release of Star Wars War of the Bounty Hunters. I will also cheat by saying that the 28th is that for my 28th birthday in mid-December, I got the comics from the High Republic and X-Wing Rogue Squadron. I watched the first episode of the Book of Boba Fett, and it's a good show opener. It was great hearing your views on the Tuscans' portrayal, as I was still accustomed to the Mandalorian's way of representing them. So this is obviously pre the subsequent episodes. My analogy of Boba's luck with getting into the underworld off the ground is akin to the armchair on the car sequence from Mr. Bean, as our leading man has a bold premise that could potentially go downhill. Lastly, I have a side note to the YouTube side of the internet. The dormant tentacle that lies to the side of the Sarlacc is not the same one that grabs Lando. The one that grabs Lando is a retractable tentacle that emerged from the middle of the Sarlacc's mouth, as seen in Return of the Jedi. However, I'm puzzled as to why we don't see the Sarlacc's beak and other tentacles unless they had retracted as a result of the pain of Boba's escape. Perhaps Sir Benjamin, the Star Wars gentleman, might know the answer to this mystery. Great work as always. I hope you're all settling into the new year. Best wishes, Hugh. He has a PS, but we're going to save that for a second. First and foremost, Hugh, what part of the internet are you hanging out in that you're all concerned about the Sarlacc's tentacles? What is happening here? Sir Benjamin, do you have any thoughts on this matter?
I don't have the hat. I don't know how I can do this.
Well, maybe
the hat is a few miles away from me right now, unfortunately.
Yeah, maybe Ben can speak for Sir Benjamin this time.
I'm trying to remember how Sir Benjamin talks.
I think the joy of Sir Benjamin is that he doesn't have a particular voice that he sticks to.
I don't know. It's I think obviously the good old Sarlacc he took a little of a beating, and he probably retreated back into the sun. Yeah.
All right,
that's all you're getting.
That's as good an answer
all
as
you
any.
can survive.
Oh my god.
Oh man! All right, thank you for that, Ben, and thank you for that, Hugh. He asked about Star Wars Christmas gifts. This is what I got. It's Han Solo and Chewbacca oven mitts.
Nice.
That's
useful.
how I roll. Yeah,
Very useful.
I like it. Chris, anything?
I got this shirt, which has got, you don't see it much on the show, but it's Baby Yoda down
it's Baby
here.
Yoda.
It
I thought it was
also
Boba Fett.
It's the same on the back. So I've worn it backwards at least 3 times, and someone had to point out to me that I was wearing it backwards, because it's literally the same. On the back, it's the neck's a little bit different. So it might be backwards now. I don't know. Oh, look, it is backwards.
It is.
Whoops.
Oops.
And then I got the Funko Pop Boba Fett keychain, which I finally figured out this week I should put hanging from my mic arm, like Ben or Dominic has the dice on his. Yep. Although I don't know how you keep them from moving.
They're at the bottom. Like they can't. There's nowhere they could go.
No, I mean like swinging, like they are now. Because it's like every time I move, it all shakes. Yours must be very secured.
I have a very, you can't see this, but I have a very dramatic desk that I podcast from. Like if I want to move this thing, it's an ordeal. So nothing is going anywhere. It's
yeah, and whereas I have like a super cheap IKEA desk that's like this big, like it's the size of what you see on screen. So I've got that. I think I showed this last week, but the Myths and Fables book,
nice,
that my cousin got me, and then I showed all of this at our immediate reaction live stream, and you'll have to watch to figure out the context it was shown in and why I had to show it. But we've got Star Wars soap, Ruthless Ritz, Dark Side Scrub, and Only Hope soap. I think Din may have the same thing, because he just went running. Either that or he's allergic to soap. And then there's a Yoda one as well, but I'm using it currently, so I don't know. I can't show that. That's not here. And then finally, from my sister, I got a bunch of Star Wars stickers, lots of Baby Yoda stickers, so I can put Baby Yoda everywhere.
Nice.
So you guys better watch yourselves at Celebration. You're gonna find this on things.
I mean, that seems like a good thing to find unexpectedly on your stuff is a Baby Yoda sticker.
Yeah.
Ben, any sweet Star Wars gifts?
See, I was fully set up last week to do this because you gave us a heads up, and then I got all my stuff to my main studio, and then stuff happened, and now I'm in the auxiliary studio, and that stuff is not with me now, so I don't have anything to show and tell, unfortunately. I will say, I mentioned this last week, I got the Mandalorian Season 2 on vinyl. Because I went out and bought my mom a very nice but relatively inexpensive record player, because they have them just out now. They're brand new and you can buy them. And then my dad went behind my back as we were working on getting her that thing, and he bought me the Mandalorian Season 2 soundtrack, and it's amazing to listen to. It's so good. I would show it, but it's not here. So that was the best thing I got. And I got you will. If I don't mention it again, the best thing I got probably wasn't Star Wars. It was a Lego Infinity Gauntlet.
Oh.
And if you look in the background of my shop, next episode maybe, you will see it behind me.
Nice. Maybe we'll do Ben's show and tell next week for the pre-show. I can actually see some of your stuff.
Yeah,
Din, did you get any sweet Star Wars gifts this year?
I got Kiadi Mundi.
Ooh, that's cool.
So throwing this out to Matt in the chat. From what comic is he from again?
Oh, I'm in that chat thread, but I can't remember what it was.
Okay, let's wait for the YouTube chat. Matt will get. You know what? I got a lot of 3D Blu-rays because I've actually asked family to not get me Star Wars stuff because I'm kind of a minimalist. I don't like having too much stuff around, and I'm running out of shelf space for figures. But so I kind of asked family not. Yeah, Joel. Yeah, I know he's in the Jedi Council, but I just mean, what comic is this particular funky, sort of like peasant hanging out?
Yeah, Matt says it's from the Outlander comic.
Yeah, he looks like he's in the Outland. So
yeah,
I got a lot of 3D Blu-rays. I have to admit something that I'm uncomfortable admitting, but a lot of them were 3D Transformers movies, and I'm really enjoying them.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Guilty pleasure found.
Yeah. It's like I'm like coming out of the closet about my Transformers 3D movies. So I don't mean to devalue that term. Sorry, but it is kind of. I do really enjoy the vocal performances and the animation of the Transformers characters. The plots and everything else can be kind of ridiculous, but those Transformers just individually are pretty cool.
Do they have just an all Transformers cut that cuts out all the humans? Watch that.
The one that aside from like the weird kind of macho male stuff of objectifying, won't go there, but you know what I'm talking about. Transformers movie. That's weird when you're watching that stuff now, but I do like Age of Extinction with Mark Wahlberg. I thought that movie had a lot of heart.
I like Bumblebee. I thought that was good. That was kind of a good shift for the series.
And the Star Wars stuff that's not released on 3D Blu-ray, so I'm really disappointed. Because sometimes if I miss a 3D movie in theaters, I don't mind because my TV really does a good job, and so I'll just watch it at home in my surround system and be totally satisfied. But Bumblebee they didn't release on 3D Blu-ray, and even though I ask for no Star Wars stuff, everyone knows I want more Star Wars on 3D Blu-ray, but I didn't get any this year because you know what, Disney, you're not releasing them. So
gotta ask Bob for those for next year. Gotta get Bob on that. See if we can get those out there.
That would be the best Christmas ever, if I could get the Star Wars saga, George's 6 movies on 3D Blu-ray. Until then, I got the Transformers.
right. Till then, yeah, that'll tide you over. All right, good stuff. Oh yeah, one. So I've got the postscript, the PS from Hugh's email, and he says, "P.S. Here's a Ray Palpatine reface that I made. Get ready."
Ray Skywalker. Bad place in an old war. Nothing's impossible.
What the hell was that?
that was Daisy Ridley's body and performance with Ian McDermott's face photoshopped.
That's creepy.
Look.
Don't do
I
that
love you,
again.
but don't do that again. That's you're playing with magic. You don't understand clearly.
Yeah. This is when Jon Favreau's talking about all of the things that could go wrong with deepfake technology in the Mandalorian documentary. That's what he was talking about right there. That's not right.
Oh my gosh.
All right. Next up, we've got 2 emails from people named Jeff. I don't know if we're going to do both of them, but we'll at the very least do one from Jeff 1. So
Jeff 1 standing by.
Yeah. So I if your name is also Jeff and you sent in an email and it doesn't get read here, stay tuned to next week. But this one comes from Jeff. They write, "Guys, I really enjoyed the episode. I listened today while on my walk. I've lost 88 pounds since July. I always listen to a podcast or a Star Wars book while walking. Thank you for what you do. I really appreciate it." When you described the episode, especially the flashback to episode 2, it got me thinking about season 2 of The Mandalorian. We saw Boba Fett and Ahsoka. Boba and Din seem to be allies. Boba and Ahsoka seem to be allies, but they don't all seem to fully trust each other. Maybe Boba is building a network of allies to do what he likes to do. But as I recall, Boba started hating the Jedi when he saw his father Jango get killed. This led me to wonder what would happen if Din and Ahsoka showed up at Boba's palace. I'm guessing that there would be tension. What do you think would happen? I think this would be a great way to announce the new seasons of their show. I have a question about the episode and would love to hear your thoughts. Was the Sarlacc alive when Boba was escaping it? It doesn't appear to be moving at all. If a person is going to be digested over 1,000 years, I think something would be happening inside the Sarlacc other than just a bunch of goo. Thank you for your thoughts and your comments, Jeff. Well, first and foremost, I love that people listen while they're out walking. I love walking as like a healthy activity, and it sounds like you do too, Jeff. And that's quite the accomplishment there. Keep going, keep walking. Walking is a great hobby. Not enough people talk about walking as a hobby. It's always a thing to get from place to place, but no, it's a good hobby. I like it. I go for a walk every day, and it's one of the highlights of my day. Every day, I look forward to it. Anyways, that's neither here nor there.
You just got to learn how to podcast while walking.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
So did Einstein, by the way.
Oh yeah. Me and Einstein, we have a lot in common.
Wait, Einstein figured out how to podcast while walking? What?
Yeah. lots of college kids have pictures of me going on their wall.
And Kaedi Mundi.
And Kaedi Mundi walking across the screen. What would happen if Boba met Ahsoka in this era? Because when I was reading the email for the first time, I thought Jeff was talking about the last time they met, which was way back in season 2 of the Clone Wars at Hondo's place. And I think something's being set up with the episode 2 flashbacks, and we're gonna get something with Jango in this episode or in this season. But I'd love to see Boba meet another Jedi in this time period, and having it be Ahsoka would be a really cool way to tie it in with everything else that's going on in the Mandoverse. And then we could even get a little nod back to the Clone Wars if they met, that hey, we've met before. This isn't our first time seeing each other or doing battle if it gets to that. So I'm all for that. I think that would be really cool.
I'm just curious what Boba's reaction would be to seeing any Jedi. I feel like it's in his psyche to be wary of Jedi and to be afraid of Jedi, and to want to kill a Jedi if he saw one. So where does that go? Obviously, if Luke showed up, that would be spicy. But Ahsoka, he doesn't really have a beef with, and she would casually tell him I'm no Jedi and all this kind of stuff. But she carries lightsabers. And he's like, I'm gonna kill you because one of your kind killed my father. So like, and Django has been a lot of this, but like, would that be part of Boba's transformation? Into the new Boba that we're seeing in this show. Would he give up his hate for Jedi? Would that be a thing, or would he still have that grudge?
Yeah, it would be interesting. I kind of want it to happen. Like, it was something I hadn't thought about until I read this email, but I kind of think I kind of want to see it. And as to the second question, I think the Sarlacc was having a nap when Boba escaped.
Okay, I have an answer to this actually. So when he is like probably need to like do this, watch the first part of that episode with headphones on and like turn up the volume, because if you watch him and when he's struggling around in there, you can hear the Sarlacc do its like bellow in the background, as if it's like distant and like it's somewhere else. So at least at that point, the Sarlacc, it seems to be alive. Now seconds later, he opens up his flamethrower and gives it a good old case of heartburn that we don't know if it survived. So who knows?
Yeah, I think the Sarlacc, I think that hurt, but I bet that old beast could survive a flame throwing or two.
I just want to know where the light's coming from.
Back to this. We're gonna hold on. We're holding on to this. Yeah, you were on that episode talking about that episode, the podcast, for 5 minutes, and you managed to bring that up then, and we're bringing it back now.
Yeah, I remember that.
Did the Sarlacc eat a flashlight?
Yeah. There's your answer. There's just above it. There's just the Sarlacc was just snacking on some flashlights or something. I don't know.
Think about it though. Like, that thing had to have indigestion. Like, it burped. Like, it had the biggest meal ever, and then it gets heartburn. It's like, well, I'm not eating any Mandalorians anymore. Jeez.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's
bioluminescence. It's bioluminescence.
All right, I think that's where we're going to leave it. There are some more emails that we will get to, including an email from a second, I believe, unrelated Jeff, that we'll get to in a future week. If you want to send in emails to be read on the show, again, swunderworld@gmail.com is the place to send it.
Especially if your name is Jeff.
Especially if your name is Jeff. We exclusively want to hear from Jeffs. No, anybody with any name can send in an email to swunderworld@gmail.com. But I think with that, we can begin to wrap things up for this week.
All right, so that'll conclude this episode of the Star Wars Underworld podcast. We want to thank everybody for listening live on YouTube, which we do every week at 9:30 p.m. Pacific, 9:30 p.m. Eastern, 6:30 p.m. Pacific. There we go. I know time zones. Every Thursday. And look up to your time if you're listening from Bulgaria or South Africa or China, because I don't remember the time zones for those. So look it up.
You mean you don't have one of those walls with just a bunch of clocks on it saying what time it is?
I used to when I was a kid, and it's no longer. I've not moved it into the studio yet. So make sure you check that out on YouTube. Search for the Star Wars Underworld, and you will find our channel. And you can follow us on social media at the SWU for the latest breaking Star Wars news throughout the week. Dominic, thank you so much for hosting tonight.
It was my pleasure, as always. Great fun getting into this episode. There's lots to talk about, and it was really a really fun discussion. I always love that when Star Wars can, when a Star Wars episode or movie or book or comic or whatever can get everybody talking, get us breaking these things down, and the good and the stuff that we didn't care for, whether that's the pacing of a scene or certain design elements. It's all interesting to talk about, good, bad, or otherwise. So a really fun discussion, and I can't wait to do all this again in 7 days' time.
And of course, you can follow Dominic on social media at DominicJ25. Ben, thank you so much for hosting as well.
Oh, this was a pleasure as always. I've loved, and it's really, I kind of have to point out the fact that it's very convenient that we decided to put our Book of Boba Fett discussions on the main show because there's been pretty much no news lately. So it would just be like 100% listener feedback. So I'm glad we were able to have like really long, in-depth discussions because honestly, sometimes I enjoy the discussion more than actually watching the episode. And I end up becoming, even if I hate an episode, I had a better appreciation for it after the fact. And especially when we have a guest such as Din on who is just so insightful. So yeah, thanks guys.
Yeah, I'm really missing our 1 hour long in-depth conversation about the character poster for the twins. Like that would have been such a great conversation. The lighting and that poster was so interesting. Like
genuinely though, in the last week I've had 2 ideas for shows that would be like special episodes, and then I think when can we do that? And then I realize, oh wait, we can't because there's TV every week now. So
might become a multi-per-week podcast again at some point for some reason, but
maybe
we'll see. Stay tuned for that. And Din, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you coming on and adding your insight to everything.
Well, it's always a real pleasure because you guys are really thought-provoking, and the bits, like Gentleman Ben bits, are pretty funny. Are really funny.
Sir Benjamin.
Don't lie to my face.
Is it Sir Benjamin or Gentleman Ben? I don't know. It's so funny, man. No, genuinely, like, laugh out loud. For real. Yeah, no, but I listen to your show every week because you do really, all three, get me thinking, and that, you'll know when you've really got me thinking when I send you a tweet storm. So it's great to be on and add to that.
Those are always appreciated.
Yeah. This week was like a tweet storm, but in person or over Zoom or whatever it is we use to record these.
Stream tweet.
And also everybody should be checking out Din's music at F105 Music on social media and looking for F105 on Spotify and other places like that. And you've been posting lots of videos of your live shows on Instagram and on YouTube from the shows you were playing out in BC over the holidays. So everybody should be checking those out as well.
Heck yeah. And you can follow Ben on social media at Ben Hart with no E. And you can follow me on social media as well at Seek3PO. Make sure you support us on Patreon, patreon.com/the SWU, so you don't miss out on those pre-shows that we do every week before the main show. You can join us live for that. And you can also watch it after the fact. A lot of fun shenanigans over there. And you can get those for as little as $1 a month. And we've got lots of other cool stuff over there for more. And also make sure that you subscribe to Star Wars Culture so that you can get those immediate reaction streams of us all being very confused trying to make sense of the Book of Boba Fett literally right after we watch it. It's super fun, so make sure you subscribe to Star Wars Culture to get that. All right, that's it. We are out of here. We'll be back next week, same time, same place, with another episode. But until then, for Din, for Dominic, for Ben, my name is Chris, and may the Force be with you.
It's a wrap.